Yo, GM, how's my music? Thought I'd just hop on, share some market thoughts on this Thursday morning in London. Just gonna get a mic and music check from people, and then start sharing some charts.
Music licensing reimagined.
Yo, what's up, Moritz? Can you hear me? See my screen? Okay. All good. Yeah, Moritz says it's good. Let me just get someone in the team to say it's good, and then I'll start sharing.
Artlist.io. Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined.
Just gonna try one thing.
Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined.
Okay, cool. Let's go into it. So I've been pretty publicly bearish. Basically, when we broke down here, we had like this double bottom that formed, and when that was forming down at like 98.5, I was starting to think, okay, maybe we're going to go down one more time, do like a triple tap down to 98. We didn't get that low. We went down to like 99.2. And then I was pretty bullish. So I was saying, okay, let's see if we can go up to like 105. We ended up going up to 107.5. So a little bit of an overshoot. And that overshoot there is what made me get even more bearish. So once we came back to 105, I entered some shorts. And the reason why I have this kind of short bias is a couple of things. On the macro front, I think things are at a state now where the markets really want to force the Fed's hand to end QT as soon as possible and to start cutting rates even more aggressively. And in macro, things tend to get worse before they get better. So that was something I was looking at on the SOFR lending side of things, so the lending rates between banks. The other bearish thing that I had in mind was obviously the US government shutdown and the impact that has on subsequent data. So not having any clarity on things like inflation prints just creates more confusion and uncertainty, and people don't like confusion and uncertainty. And then the final piece is just about positioning. Like crypto still has lots of levered positioning. I'll look at something like Bitcoin, for example. And you can see here, there's still a degree of stickiness to open interest on higher time frames. Let's have a look. Yeah, this like open interest, which got absolutely smoked on 1010, has been slowly kind of grinding up. But what's worrying me on shorter time frames with things like Bitcoin is that this funding rate is super elevated. What I think is happening on things like Bitcoin, which is the asset that you get the most leverage on across most exchanges, is people are just revenge trading it, and they're revenge trading it to the upside. And this shows in the funding rates. It shows in like all the liquidations that take place of longs. So these red lines are longs getting liquidated. And I think what's happened is a lot of people lost money on 1010. They then are of the mindset that markets can only go up now. I can't be short from here. And so they chase the long, and they chase it with more leverage than they should because they have less capital because of 1010, revenge trade, chop, and keep getting like killed on the downside. And so that's my like bearish thesis. I think we can go down to like 93k. And I guess the big question is, how do you play this? Because other than being outright short Bitcoin, which, as you've seen over the past couple of days, has these like moves to the upside, and you can get kind of stopped out here or up here or up here even this morning. These are all lower highs. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. They're all lower highs, so I'm maintaining my bearish bias. But rather than just be outright short, what can you do? And so I wanted to talk about pair and some of the things that we are facilitating on pair at the moment. So let me share my screen there. And here we are. So this is pair V2, which is on beta.pair.garden. And it looks on the surface like everything that you'll have seen before at pair. But obviously there's a couple of changes which I can go into. So the go-to trades, which have been like long hype and short some other stuff, has been a little bit choppy. I still like things like long hype Sol. But I also like to do some kind of baskets against Sol. Sol is going to be one of my favorite short legs. Some of the assets I do like, if I was to basket trade long, are going to be high Bitcoin Mantle, just because I am of the view that they are fundamentally strong assets. Here you've got real utility of Mantle and Bybit behind it. Obviously Bitcoin the king, with Bitcoin DOM going up, and then hype I still think is somewhat overvalued. I don't want to be outright long though, and Sol, obviously there is dying demand after the DAT got done, Forward Industries, after all the kind of top blasting they did, the meme coin casino thesis isn't really playing out. They're doing everything they can to engineer some exit liquidity for Solana. So I hear at the upcoming conference they'll unveil Firedancer and things. And then I also hear that they are going to do some like leverage looping of the Ford DAT and make it possible via Camino, so make it possible for people to leverage loop their X stock or their tokenized DAT, and hopefully that helps them raise more money. All of it just stinks of like engineering exit liquidity. Sol's cooked, and I like it as one of my short picks. So looking at the performance breakdowns, which is again something you can do. This portfolio has more recently been doing pretty well. It's broadly flat. I think we can find slightly better baskets as well, though, because clearly like it's underperforming, and it's underperforming because stuff like Mantle is getting smoked even more than Sol at the moment. So let's remove Mantle for now. Let's keep hype and Bitcoin as my long legs. And let's add some other things here on the short side of things. So we could add something like Litecoin here, which has been struggling recently. And maybe here we can add equities, which we've most recently added. So we've added the Trade XYZ 100 index, which is 100 of the biggest US companies. I want to be long equities and short crypto. And I'm going to change the weightings here to like 25%. Like so more weighted towards being long equities. That doesn't look like a chart that I particularly want to be long. I think we can just chop and change a lot here. So what's causing this underperformance is actually Litecoin is doing really well on higher time frames, lower time frames underperforming. Long hype is being problematic. So as much as I have my bag bias for hype, let's take it out and start to experiment a bit here. Maybe we can add stuff like Cardano, XRP as well.
Music licensing reimagined.
So I'm just like doing this all kind of on the fly of stuff that I think looks okay. And here I'm just like over engineering, as you can see. So I'm going to go back to a chart that I do truly believe in, which is to be short Solana and long Bitcoin and equities. Let's rebalance this. So it's 50-50. Yeah, and I quite like this trade. I have a short thesis on Solana. I don't want to be outright short. I'm happy to be long equities, happy to be long Bitcoin as well. So basket charting is one thing that we can do. Obviously, slide up my leverage. I can do up to 20x leverage here on this basket trade, and I can enter it in one click. Like I said, this is all pair V2, and it's live right now if you go on beta.pair.garden. So I'm going to execute that one trade. I'm already in a trade here, which is long hype Bitcoin XRP against Sol. And so I'm just basically adding to that kind of view. Some of the other stuff then that's new and worth thinking about here, I'm in the trade, is how we actually execute these trades. So if we feel like this basket, which is currently got a basket price of 18.1, is going to go a little bit lower, then we can do some laddered orders. So let's say like so, we could have 5 levels between 18 and 18.1. And set those ladder orders as well. So we're going to have limit orders down here, all the way buying. And those orders are all placed for me like so. So this is one of the features which I really like, which is having these laddered levels so that you can average your entry. The markets right now are in this like state where I really think the alpha is in execution and how you execute your trades. Because you could have a great idea like being long Bitcoin and equities and short Sol against it, but it's all about how you execute it. If I just click and do a market order here, I'm subject to this one level, 18.11, with the weightings as it is. Obviously, if I change this to 30, that won't be 18.1, it'll be like 41.53. We do have those weighted ratio chart levels for you. But the value is really in the execution. So right now, I have just set some laddered limit orders, Bitcoin XYZ against Sol. I could also set some standard limit orders. So even though I have all those ones there, I could set one a bit lower at like 17.95 and put that in place as well. So if for whatever reason we go down here and Solana rallies, then I can enter a little bit more of that trade too. So that's on the basket side of things. Yesterday, we also added some equity markets. So if you go here to HIP3, we added NVIDIA, and obviously this market is pretty new, so the chart will be pretty fresh, but you can see that adding more and more of these over time is going to create some really interesting opportunities, like being long NVIDIA and short Intel, or being long Tesla and short Rivian, those kind of things. One thing to keep in mind of though when you trade these equity markets is the funding rate is pretty high. So just keep an eye on how much you're paying on an annualized basis, because if I take that back out again, I'm in a situation here where I'm actually in a much better situation than I was if I had NVIDIA in my long basket. So just be mindful of that too. What else is on my mind here for the market? So yeah, I think hype is still going to underperform a little bit, as much as I want to be long hype. I think really important thing to do is you add it to your long basket here, and you look on different time frames, and you can see this like negative performance, right? It's really like bringing down your basket performance, the long hype leg. And so the data doesn't lie, as much as I have a bag bias, and so I won't have it in my long legs for now. I would prefer to have equities. I could even have something like PAXG and have gold in there as well instead of Bitcoin. And again, see what the chart of that looks like. And that looks really, really healthy too. So what else is going on the pair side of things? The big thing is Hyper Season 2. So we finished Hyper Season 1, which was essentially us giving out 2 million points over a number of weeks to everyone that participated and traded on pair in Season 1. We paid out over 2,000 hype. So at the time, it was almost 100k worth of hype tokens, and those were distributed a few weeks ago. We have then decided to launch Season 2 of the Hyper Points campaign. So anytime you place a trade on pair V2, you will earn some of these points, and those points again will translate to hype tokens that you can claim. This time we're going to go much bigger, so we're going to give up to 6,000 hype tokens at the end of this points campaign. And so what I say to people is, if you want to do any pair trading or basket trading, and you want to earn these high pair points, which will translate to hype, plus all your volume gets registered on Hyperliquid. So if there is like a Season 3 points going on, you get points on Hyperliquid itself as well as our points. And then if you're trading these equity markets, you're also potentially farming a unit or trade XYZ airdrop as well. So there's like 3 potential benefits to you having routing some of your orders through here. Some people can't access trade.xyz, and so coming to somewhere like Pair and doing your long equities or long Nvidia trades through us will also qualify you potentially for an airdrop from Trade XYZ or from Unit. So those are the 3 main benefits of coming to Pair from an incentive point of view. We haven't revealed how when this points campaign will end. So we are going to keep it running for a little while, but essentially you can see I'm only like rank 45, so you're super early to trading on here as well. Some features that you may have missed, let's say you want to have a look at a different long leg, like maybe being long pump, short sol, which from a narrative perspective makes sense. Then we have this collapsible menu here called Agent Pair, and Agent Pair here will show you the correlation between the 2 assets. It will show you whether they're co-integrated and the meaning of that, what the current Z score is, so how deviated is it from its long-term average, the vol of the pair, and then most importantly, a suggested beta neutral weighting as well. So because pump is more volatile than sol, you don't need to be as long to capture the upside. And then on the downside, because pump can go down more than sol can, you obviously don't want as much exposure either. So we're constantly calculating the beta across any 2 pairs. It could be pump sol, it could be pump versus uni or anything like that. And we will calculate those values for you so that you can do a much more efficient kind of beta hedge as well. So pump sol, coming back to that, just toggle here, it auto populates your weights for you, so suggested beta neutral weighting, and then it shows you what the weighted ratio chart is. So a lot of people in TradingView or in Tree Terminal in Telegram chats, they're typing FC pump sol, and they'll see a chart. The only thing you're going to see is the price ratio between the 2. But here you can actually go and back test what 70-30 would have looked like, or 50-50 or whatever. So it's really important to have these weighted ratio charts. So let's do a little pump sol trade as well here. Somebody's asking me when 87k. I think that all depends on equities. Like, my view is that we go down and test the low 90s, so something between like 93 to 95k on Bitcoin. Obviously alts get absolutely obliterated down there. I think you need equities to have like a sustained move down to get sub 90, and I don't think we stay there for too long. If we do, there's going to be obviously a lot of panic in the markets as well. But yeah, one of the big barometers that people use to see where we are in the cycle is Bitcoin dominance. So I'm going to go back to my trading screen.
Artlist.io.
So BTC DOM, which surprisingly hasn't been going up like you would expect. So Bitcoin dominance measures the percentage of Bitcoin's market cap relative to everything else. So we've seen like when you get these moves down and moves down, it means that other assets like Ethereum, XRP, Solana, etc., that they are starting to accumulate a higher percentage of total crypto market cap, and we've been floating around 60%. There was this huge wick up to about 63.5 on 1010, there on 1010. And what that meant was alts got smoked and Bitcoin, even though Bitcoin got smoked in relative terms, there was this big wick up here. I am of the view, and one of my bearish kind of takes is that we retest this level at some point. I know we went up to like 61.5-ish. I'm surprised, if anything, that we're not going higher, but I do believe that Bitcoin dominance kind of grinds higher from here to fill this wick at some point. Obviously, this is outcome based, so you can't do traditional charting on Bitcoin Dom per se, but like it in my opinion is something which is just going to keep grinding higher and higher at the time being, and therefore I'm happy being long Bitcoin and short alts. Or to be fair, I'm also happy to just be short Bitcoin altogether. There's different market scenarios in which you can be long Bitcoin Dom and actually short Bitcoin. There's other scenarios where you can be long Bitcoin Dom and long Bitcoin, which is like an early stage cycle thing. If you think back to when Trump was put in power, Bitcoin Dom was going up and Bitcoin was going up. I think we're now at the stage in the cycle where Bitcoin Dom can go up and Bitcoin itself can go down. And that's driving a lot of my kind of more bearish take. So for the people that missed the start of the stream, what I will say is I'm retaining a bit of a bearish view here. And I think we come down to like the 90s. My view here is because of people who are like revenge trading and leverage longing. And you see this in all the liquidations that take place of longs decreasing in value, but the funding rate remains elevated. And it is a little bit choppy out there too. My watch list of things that I'm looking at, ETH has had some relative strength, so it's worth keeping an eye on stuff like ETH BTC. Uni, I have no interest in playing it. This was like all an insider front run and then news catalyst into short squeeze. And now we're floating down here. Do I believe that Uni is entering a new phase of like sustained profitability? No. Like how many people actually use the Uni front end, or how much of DEX aggregator volume is going to go through Uni in the future? I think you can take a somewhat bearish stance here and feel like a lot of the tokenomic catalysts have kind of played out there. Hype is interesting. For me, like I've seen a lot of group chats saying this is very distributive, that this kind of price action that we're seeing right now. And I would somewhat echo that view. I think hype is not immune to downside that we'll see in Bitcoin. In terms of like price targets, I wouldn't want to see us go too much below this like 30 level, which has been support there, down here on 1010, and then a retest down here, which didn't break it. I do think if you get anything back down to like 28 level down here, that's an omega buy. And so the path that I would look to really lever up on hype would be something like this, down to 28, take out all the stops. I think they're comfortable at 30, and then up to like 52. I think that's a really reasonable path to accept for hype, and therefore one of the reasons I don't really want to take it as a long leg. Generally speaking, when I'm creating my trades, I'm sorting here by funding rate, and the highest funding rates are on things like Zcash and Hype. These are assets that are really vulnerable to downside because of the amount of leverage that's being built up in them. And so I don't necessarily want to be like outright short these for a long period of time. I did yesterday. But yeah, they are not attractive longs because not only am I paying a lot of funding, you have a lot of people that are positioning long and therefore vulnerable to the downside as well. So there is that argument there. So I will stop sharing my screen again, come back to pair. So the trades that I put on stream, you can see long pump Sol is up, long Bitcoin and equities versus Sol is up, and I'm happy to pretty much run this long Bitcoin and equities versus Sol. I'd rather be long the top 100 rather than Nvidia, because Nvidia, like we said, has this, because it's so new, people are really like spending a lot of money. You can outright long it, but people are paying a lot of funding to be long this right now, and the annualized funding is pretty brutal on Nvidia if you look at the Hyperliquid front end. So I don't necessarily think it's the best long leg right now to have. But yeah, let's go back to this here. So anything else I wanted to mention? I think that's pretty much it. So just to summarize again, Pair is where Pair V2 is where you can come and do some of your basket trading, basket charting. You can send these as market orders, limit orders. We have this feature now where you can set your trades conditional on Bitcoin dominance. So I was talking about Bitcoin DOM currently being at 58%. We could end up in a scenario where Bitcoin DOM goes up to 63, and that's the time where like I really want to get long alts again. So if I was to do that as like a trade, just to give you an idea, the things that I like to be long when Bitcoin DOM kind of tops would be ETH, Hype, Mantle. Let's stick to those three, and then maybe even short. Well, I'm always going to keep short Solana. I think it's cooked. Bitcoin and Sol. Let's do a little bit more there. Like so. And so when I was talking about Bitcoin DOM, when Bitcoin DOM goes above 62.5, let's say, then get me into this long basket here. And so we'll constantly be looking at the value of Bitcoin dominance. What I just said was when Bitcoin dominance starts to top again and fill the wick, you might want to be long alts. These are the alts I want to be long. And I can just enter this as a limit order. So I can just walk away and have that conditional limit order working for me. A lot of people have been asking me, and I'll just talk about it very quickly, about Agent Pair and what our plans are for Agent Pair. So Agent Pair has been very successful. It's now put on over 3,382 trades. Its win rate is exceptional, and obviously these APYs and total returns are kind of insane. It's doing about 50 trades a day, and for the uninitiated, what it's doing is it's constantly scanning our library for mean reversion opportunities. So right now it likes being long Mudang and short Ray. It gives you a reason why we think mean reversion is going to happen because of the Z score, the spread, the vol of the pair, a full breakdown. If you are interested, this is not generic AI slop. This is like all about the statistical basis for entering this mean reversion trade. And the big question is, when is this going to be a vault? Because clearly, like, there's so many trade ideas, you can't just execute them all at once. We are currently in audit right now for the vault contracts, and so we're hoping to have those up and running before the end of the year. I will say that you will need to own Pair to deposit into that vault. So now, given where Pair is at, I think it's an interesting time to think about maybe acquiring a bit, because how much you can deposit into Agent Pair will be proportional to how much Pair or staked Pair you hold as well. So a little bit of alpha to anybody that stayed to the end of the stream. But I'll wrap up there. I think now's a great time to be pair trading and basket trading. It requires a little bit of iteration, looking at velo data and traditional charts to pick your long legs versus your short legs. I think you can also play on some certain themes as well. So being long like Bitcoin and equities and gold, and short a whole bunch of high emission garbage. It's on you really to figure out what the high emission garbage is. But if you come to Discord, we'll be able to... Oh God, sorry, I wasn't sharing. But yeah, if you come to Discord, you'll be able to get some ideas from the rest of the community as well. So I think I'll wrap up the stream there. My market view is generally bearish on Bitcoin, and I think it's a great time to be pair trading and basket trading. and in your basket, you just want to pick a basket of some of the most garbage stuff out there, which I've been overly mean to Solana, but there is even more garbage out there as well. So I would say stuff like Scroll is another one you could quite comfortably short. Looking over here, things like Linear has a huge emission schedule coming up. Then what else do I want to be short? Merkle. Yeah, there's just like with this stuff, dead meme coins, Fartcoin where the funding rate always blows out and you can quite comfortably short. And look at that trade. You can be long hype, short this basket of stuff. On 1010, you would have made a lot of money because of the way that those alts worked. And then Pair is the place where you can come and enter this in one click. So just a random basket that I built. I need to increase the size on that. And then again, the charting breakdown that you can see and plug and play with all of that. So yeah, I'll wrap up there. Thank you for listening, and come to the Discord if you have any questions. Peace.
Music licensing reimagined.
There we go. Custom backgrounds are fun to play with.
Artlist.io. Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined. Artlist.io.